With very little change going on around the Kansas City Chiefs with Chris Jones and Sammy Watkins, it's time to take a look at what a straight draft might look like. Welcome back to RGR, folks. I'm Brian. This is me going rogue on the Chiefs, the NFL draft, and athleticism in particular. I want to tell you about the athletic matrix. I'm going to get to that in another video. It has been released. I'm really proud of it this year. We're doing a lot, and we're going to have a couple of products available for you. The first is the athletic matrix, just straightforward. Who's the best athlete at every position according to their testing and our formulas over at Rogue Analytics. And if you put RGR20 in the code, you get 20% off of your purchase. So check that out at Rogue Analytics, rogueapc.com. Today, going back over another mock draft. About every other week I'm doing one. Might have a little bit of a combination this time. Today, no movement yet. So we're treating it as if nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a straight draft all the way across, pretty much. And it's going to be interesting. We're going to take a look at two different competing boards. We're going to start here on the mock draft machine at the Draft Network. And those guys, and you know they do a good job. A lot of folks using this. And then we're going to jump over to FanSpeak as well. And we're going to take a look at that one too. So right now, no trades. I'm not going to offer any trades. In this machine, you don't get offers. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But we're going to start this. And here we go. It's important that we do this because every single draft is a little bit different. Every team's board is a little bit different. There are some players that are going to be taken off of boards completely for some players, for some teams versus others. Now, I'm going to put this for 7 just in case we decide to trade back. You never know what we're going to get. And we're going to go at normal speed so we have a little bit of a chance to talk, like I said. And we'll get this started. And it looks like we are off and running. So this is the concept. As players are evaluated, and this is a really, really tough year to evaluate talent if you're not one of the guys who has scouts on the road. If you're a GM, a personnel director, this is a tough year. You got to trust your scouts that much more. In fact, I'll probably do another video maybe tomorrow, just on why this is so difficult for a lot of these teams and the executives that are driving their teams towards this draft and how they're going to make selections. Now, as we've come down, we have come to our pick. I think Cole Kmet in the first round is ridiculous. That's not going to happen, so I can't see that coming. But one thing that has happened is much like I thought it might, in that Ken Murray is starting to overtake Patrick Queen in terms of draft position. That's how it is on my board. And I think I told you that last time I did one of these, so that you guys could make sure to see it. I hope that worked. In fact, I should probably blow this up a little bit more so we have names in a better view. That's important. And it leaves us a little bit to be desired in terms of how we're going to go about making our selections. And I think that in the end, this is probably the way that it's going to go about. So what we have here for options are a couple of running backs. Very interesting and a little bit differentiated, to tell you the truth. We have Patrick Queen, the other big linebacker on this draft board that is a first-round talent or borderline first-round talent. You have an edge rusher, an interesting but I think a little bit limited wide receiver. I don't like his change of direction. That is Jalen Reagor. Zach Bond's a projection. I don't think that he goes this high when it comes down to the draft. I think there are teams that will like him in the second round, but I don't think you're going to get up towards the top of it. And really nothing else stands out here as guys that we have to take. You've heard me talk about Diggs. We're not going to go there today. Looks like Ruiz has fallen down this board, which I think is a little bit far-fetched because I think somebody's going to like him. But really, when we look at this list, and the Chiefs have come out and said lately that they are definitely looking for a coverage linebacker. So that makes this pretty easy. That's where Queen's strengths are. He can learn to do the other things. He can learn to make better reads, come downhill a little bit quicker, being more instinctual, but he has the coverage thing pretty much down. Turning and running with running backs is still a little bit of thing that he'll have to work on, but definitely in zones, he's going to be the guy. So I am going to not hit his report. That was not my intention. But to select him, if it will let me make the selection, and I probably have to scroll over. That's what it is. There we go. So Patrick McQueen is on board. Not McQueen, Patrick Queen. I'll zoom this back out so we don't have that problem again. And you see a lot of interesting players coming off the board. It is one of those things where you have to be paying attention to what you need overall, especially given how limited the Chiefs have been able to be in the trade market, in the free agent market. But you can't go and sell out because you like a guy or something. That's a little bit too far to go. There are some guys on this roster that I think were a little bit too far to go. Trading up for Breeland Speaks is one of them. Breeland Speaks is a guy, I've been getting a lot of questions about him lately, and we don't know what he's going to be. And that's part of the issue with him, is that there's just still question marks, 3 years in. So that's, the injury goes a long way towards that, but that is part of the issue. But what we're left with is the dilemma here. Another running back, a guy that I like actually, Cam Akers, and I think he might last till the third, to tell you the truth, and if he does, I think he's worth investigating there. Interior defensive line had Chris Jones. In this scenario, we still have Chris Jones. He's got an extension. He's on the roster. That's why we don't have a higher draft pick. So going interior defensive line here in the second round is probably too much of a stretch. So you look here at safeties. I think Ashton Davis is interesting, but I think Kyle Duggar's got more upside. He's played at a very small level. He's a great athlete. I think he's somebody that could really eventually pair in the back to let Juan Thornhill come up a little bit more and be kind of a triangle set safety pattern, which I think the league is going to, and Spags in particular wants to go to a little bit more. Then you have a wide receiver here in Pittman. You have a corner in Dantzler, who plays strong, seems to have a good feel for the ball. I haven't done a ton of his film yet, but I've done a little bit, and I'm starting to look. He's just not much of an athlete in terms of long speed. And so you get yourself in a position with him where you're back to what you had before in Bashaud Breeland, and before him and Sean Smith, guys that are susceptible to deep speed, much like Rashad Fenton is now. You got to have somebody that can run in this particular position, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think probably the guy that fits the bill the most, that I think has a connection, and I think I want to go with that because the synergy in the backfield is something that, whether you're playing zone or you're coming up and playing man, I think Bryce Hall is a guy that has better speed than Dantzler, but I don't have the question marks about his work ethic and everything that I have with Damon Arnett. There's been some bad reports about Arnett and being prepared to do things. So while this is a touch of a stretch, I'm going to go grab Hall now because he's available. I was debating going with Robert Hunt there, who's an interior offensive lineman I think can really help. Make no mistake, when they signed Mike Remmers, it was not to be a starter. He is going to be this 2020 year, he's going to be the whiz. He's going to be the guy that is in the background, that will step in if there's an injury. He will play if there's some kind of fall off in production from the starters you have. But he is not there to be the number one guy that lines up at left guard over and over and over. He'll step in if needed. And that brings us to a really interesting place here now at 96. Third round, haven't tried to trade back yet. Don't really want to because I like to stay in the top 100 and get as many picks in there as you possibly can. I probably should have tried to trade up, to tell you the truth, but we'll deal with that in a couple of minutes. Don't need a quarterback, not something that you're going to do. And here's the guy who's been rising a little bit. You've seen me take him before, but I'm going to skip Chase Claypool for right now. And he's still listed as a wide receiver. I still don't think that's what he's going to be. I'm going to skip him for now. You guys have seen me select him in some of the previous mock drafts. We're trying to look at something a little bit more varied. We have a corner, we have a linebacker, so we have room to go towards the offensive side and try to pick somebody up that we think can help us. And I do like Claypool. I'd probably prefer him over Van Jefferson here and KJ Hill, to tell you the truth, if it were just me. But in that room, I feel like the Chiefs hierarchy and everybody that's going to be involved in making that decision might not agree with me. They might see him as more of a project, especially if you're talking about moving into tight end, which is where I think he fits best. So I think really it comes down to those two guys. I like Benjamin. I think he's at least a fourth rounder. I don't think he gets up here, but he's a really hard runner, and I like the way that he moves. He is a guy that's on my watch list, but I do have him as a day 3 guy. So I'm not going to reach for him here. So for me, it comes down to Van Jefferson and KJ Hill. KJ Hill runs a lot of underneath, runs out of the slot, a spot that I want Mecole Hardman to stay in. So I'm not going to go that direction. I'm going to take Van Jefferson from Florida. And I think what he did in the Senior Bowl tells a big story about what he's going to be able to do for the Chiefs when it comes down to it, or whoever ends up drafting him. I think it's competitive. I think it's a guy that can walk in and be somebody that can play right away. Maybe he's not going to be a huge impact guy. It might be another year like we saw with Mecole Hardman, where he's got to learn the ropes. The offense is terribly complex. That is a certainty. We know that. And maybe it just takes him a little bit of time to get into it. And that may be absolutely true. But I think eventually he will be the kind of guy that can play that X, can move around, can do some of the things that I think the team needs him to do in order to, again, offset what they have in Hill and Hardman already. I think that's going to help. So we've gotten Patrick another target, another guy that can do something a little bit different that isn't the same kind of thing. So now we come back in round 4. And I'm looking at, I'm not digging a whole lot here right off the top of the bat. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody I can target lower down and maybe try to move back a bit. I think that might be worth trying. So I'm going to throw, except for we started this draft and it didn't work out. I guess when I reloaded it, it knocked me out of the premium, so I can't do a trade. I would have tried to trade down here. I would have tried it looking at maybe get back into this range, maybe talk to the Eagles, maybe talk to the Panthers, who want to add to their rosters. Both of them. Maybe you can move back a couple and pick up a 6th round and pick somebody else up. But as it stands right now, we're on the clock at 138 and it's ticking away. And so we're going to select somebody in the 4th round. We've addressed wide receiver depth a little bit. We have a couple of guys. Both Degara and Asiasi are decent athletes, but nothing earth-shattering, nothing super special. I'm looking at, let's see, tight ends, backup wide receivers. Anthony Gordon, I think somebody's made a couple of points to me that Harrison Hand I'm not super huge on. Blackman's interesting. And that's a really great pick. We'll talk about that if he's still here in a minute. So what I'm going to do is go with, on my board, I think the guy that, and I haven't even started stacking yet, but I will get there. And I think this guy that's going to be high on it is another guy that can come in and rotate along the defensive line and make an impact in terms of being what Spags wants. So if he's going to play coverage linebackers like we selected Patrick Queen in the 1st round, you got to have bigger girth, guys that can stop the run in the front 4 and try to do it with just 4 of them. So we're going to go get Lecky Fotu and add him to the mix in there with Colin Saunders. And right now, in this scenario, we still have Chris Jones. So just kind of go a little bit younger there. They let Xavier Williams go. That's going to be the truth. We don't know about Mike Pennel yet. I think Pennel ends up coming back, but right now we're going to act as though that's not in the cards. And we're going to get to the point where we're going to take a look at what we can choose and what we can do to bolster that rotation. Keep the big dudes on the defensive line fresh. And I think a couple of guys that can exploit gaps, can use their strengths, and still have some anchor. I think that's important and something that can help this team as they go try to repeat. And that's a tall order. So now we come down. We're later in the 5th round, and we're looking at somebody that can come in, somebody that's going to have to make the team probably on special teams, somebody who can make an impact. And you've seen me take Antonio Gandy Golden before. I do think that he is an upside guy. I like his suddenness. He doesn't have super long speed, but I do like his suddenness, and I think that helps him in breaking routes. I think that helps him have a chance to actually make a contribution to an NFL team. Wanham is an interesting athlete. I think he's got a lot of upside as an outside edge rusher, but I don't know that that's the direction that they want to go. Another corner that you've seen me take in the past is Lamar Jackson. He's kind of falling down because as people look at his film, he does lose more reps than you'd like. Not really what you're looking for. And so I think really what it says to me is there are options kind of everywhere, but you can't have enough in the secondary. Whether it's guys that can come down and play the slot and still play safety or some kinds of variations. There's one guy here who's a very, very good athlete, and I think that allows Spags to have some play time. He's a guy, honestly, I would have to check his stats. We'll do that after I tell you who it is, about where he might fit in. But I think Tanner Muse is an interesting athlete that could really make some kind of difference. And he's 6'2", 230. That's what I was thinking he was. And what that tells me is that he's a guy that could come in, learn the ropes for a year, and be an eventual replacement for Dan Sorensen. A guy that can probably play nickel linebacker. He has tons of speed. He has great change of direction. And as an athlete, Tanner Muse is very, very interesting. So I'm going to go and select him. We're going to add to the secondary. It's not a complete defensive draft, but it is one that allows them to make some changes and get some move up in a couple of different positions. Now we're going to let this run through so that we can take a look at the total thing before we jump over to the other site that I think is very interesting, because I ran a simulation, and I usually do a few of these before I get on here and record one for you guys, and got a really interesting offer on the other screen. I hope that it stays there and it hasn't timed out, but we're going to find out in a minute. Now, again, a little bit of background. If you want that At Last book from Matt Derrick, there's still a coupon code over at Triumph Books. And since everybody's at home and looking for stuff to do, I figure it's a good investment. You can get 25% off if you use Locked Chiefs 25 at Triumph Books to get At Last. And I'll put a link there in the show notes. But also the Athletic Matrix is something that I think I'm going to keep referring back to as we get closer and closer to the draft. And I'll try to give you guys a preview of it, something visual here in the next bit. But as this continues to tick down, we're getting closer and closer and closer. One thing to keep an eye on, if they were to trade back in somehow and get another pick, a future pick, John Runyon's an interesting name here that you could get as a late round guy that could grow into a tackle that you might like. He's got the pedigree and that kind of stuff. I think that's interesting. Not quite the same story for Charlie Heck, but that's the way that it goes. So this is what we ended up doing. And we started out with a coverage linebacker, something the Chiefs have come out and said that they're looking for. And Patrick Queen fell to us. He's a little rough around the edges in terms of run fits, but I do feel that he's a great athlete and he has a lot of upside. Remember, he only started like 5 games, I think it was. So you got to keep that in the back of your head. But a lot of upside with him. So we went Patrick Queen. We come back with a corner that can play man and zone and knows Juan Thornhill pretty well. Played with him at Virginia and Bryce Hall. Gave Pat another weapon in Van Jefferson. Don't know if that's going to come into play depending on what happens with Sammy Watkins. And finished it off with Lecky Fotu and Tanner Muse, 2 upside guys on the defense that can come in rotationally and learn the ropes, and I think can look to make an impact in year 2. That's kind of perfect for day 3 guys, so I think that's the way that it works the best. Now, I'm going to flip us over to On the Clock, the mock draft simulator from Fanspeak. And this is not what I was looking for. But we are going to go find the version. And here it comes. So I started this draft. The Chiefs are on the clock here at 32. And this is more similar to what I expect to get offers. And that's the nice thing about Fanspeak's mock simulators. They will make you offers. And I'm not going to trade back with the Vegas Raiders, of course. Although look at the haul that they're offering. If you were really looking to get a whole lot of thickness there in the top 100, that's quite a bit. But this is the trade that I've actually tried to make on the mock draft on TDN, and it hasn't worked. But this is more of what I'm expecting. If you're going to move back from 32 to get, say, to 42, which is their second round pick, this is the Jacksonville Jaguars, I expect to get a third round pick in return. That's a little bit on the higher side, but that's what I'm going to be pushing for. So in this scenario, what we're going to do is I'm going to accept that. And they're going to go ahead and pick at 32 after, let's see, and they took Jordan Love. That's why they did it. They want a little competition in this scenario for Gardner Minshew, and that makes sense. And when we move on to the next round, we're going to see exactly how it worked out. Bills are offering a trade here. They want us to move all the way back. No, they want us to move up to get 22. Not interested in that. Not interested in the Bears trade for 18 in the second round. So I'm going to decline those. And we're going to start that round and get after it because we have 2 picks in the second round at this point. and we've picked up a second, third. So that's great. We now have, again, 4 picks in the top 100 still. So we've actually gained a top 100 player, and that's what I was looking to do. I think that is something that the Chiefs will be looking to do too, if they have to play out this scenario where they've extended Chris Jones and they have Sammy on the roster and they don't have any additional draft picks. So where does that leave us? And I'm using the composites board for everyone over at Fanspeak. And that kind of takes all the boards that you see around Twitter and the internet and kind of puts them together, stacks them up. Very interesting here is that what we've seen happen is a couple of guys that we're used to seeing go early, and Lloyd Cushenberry as well as Kenneth Murray have already gone off the board. So that brings me back here to the list, and this is obviously a little bit different view. I can probably zoom it in for you guys a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that works. And so, again, we're working with 10, 31, 9, and 32. And there's a couple of options here. Now it comes down to Jeff Gladney versus A.J. Terrell. They're the top 2 on the board. I don't see anybody else that's going to compete with them at this position. We are picking at 42, not 32, so it's going to get slim after this. We have to take one of them, in my opinion, to meet that need, and we're not going to get another chance at it. So it comes down to Gladney's undersized. Terrell underperformed late, but I think he has higher upside. It's a question of what do you want to do? I like Gladney's tenacity, and I know that he has played big receivers well in the past. I'm just not so sure that's going to carry over to what he's able to do at the NFL level. I'm just not convinced, especially with Courtland Sutton, Keenan Allen, and a number of big receivers in this conference, in this division in particular. I think that's a little bit more troublesome. So I'm going to go A.J. Terrell here and take him at 42 in order to give somebody to run with Ward and Rashad Fenton. And I think that's a young group. I still think they're going to have to add a veteran at some point to be in the room and help them out. Gladney went off the board a few picks later. We see that, as did Jalen Johnson. So what we're seeing is Bryce Hall as well, all second rounders, even before we got Bryce Hall in the previous draft. And so that was a good decision on our part because it left us with the ability here at our next pick to take a look at somebody that can help us in a different way. So, could I be tempted to double dip at cornerback because Igbenogany is there? Maybe. You look at a really interesting D lineman in Matabuke, who, again, if you have Chris Jones in this scenario, do you need to invest that right there? Is that what you're looking to do? And I'm looking down here at a number of different guys that are falling into the 80s. We are at, what are we at now? We're at 63? Yes, we're at 63. Tyler Battis is an interesting pick. I do like him. He's got some injury history. I don't know that he's the athlete that the Chiefs are looking for along their interior offensive line, so I'm not 100% that they would actually do that. And I'm trying for the most part to go towards what they would do. But you got to remember, we have a second round pick. That's why we're doing this exercise in order to see where we can get the best value. There's D linemen remaining. There's a couple of interesting corners here, but beyond that, it doesn't get too deep too fast. So the question is, what do you guys want to do? Leave your comments below. Right now is the question mark. Do we go for the interior offensive line, or do we double dip and get another cornerback that we like, a guy with track speed, who's actually ranked right where we're sitting? And I'm going to go with him. Noah Igbenogany. I think his mom was an Olympic sprinter. Very, very interesting. And so when we look at our summary, we come away in the second round with A.J. Terrell and Igbenogany, and we have 2 picks in the coming round in the third. So upcoming picks, we're starting the third round. We have 2, number 9 and number 32, and we're going to try to get something done. So we're going to start this round. I don't expect trade offers, and we didn't get any. That makes sense. And we're seeing the players roll off the board here. Van Peebles goes, a very interesting performer. Here come the Bills again. The Bills want to get back up, as do the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Vikings is an interesting play here because they want to give us 2 threes. So 2 top 100 picks for this 9th pick. So we're going to end up moving back and picking up. We still have 3 selections in the third round. Now, that's a way that you build a roster. So I'm going to take it for giggles, and we're going to move back again. And this is obviously a longer scenario, but at this point, what we have is the Chiefs have 25, 32 where we began, and 41. And we're going to get a little cluster there of guys that in the third round at that point should be able to grow into starters, just not the first year, but should be able to contribute. And so let's take a look at what we're left with. And the way that this works, we have a couple of guys in here at offensive line. I'm not sure if Moody's really going to stay at guard. I think I've heard people talking about moving him around. Couple of interesting linebackers, which we haven't addressed yet. There's Fotu from the other draft that we said. And so I kind of have a plan here as to where we're going to go. Just looking at this and how my board's going to come out, we're going to take Malik Harrison, who is a well-rounded jack-of-all-trades linebacker. He's not a true coverage linebacker. Troy Dye is. But I don't trust him against the run. I don't trust him to hold up. Akeem Davis Gaither, I think, is really interesting, but I think he's going to be a lower-round pick, so I wouldn't have him this high. So we're going to go with Malik. We're going to see what happens in the next couple picks, come back and see what we're left with. Bredesen goes, Moody goes, and Tyler Johnson. And now we're back. We're back on the clock at 32 here. Again, 31 last round. Now we're at the back end, and we have 2 more. We're going to take a look. There's, again, a couple of those athletic safeties, one being, where'd he go? I just had him up here. Oh, that's why. Kyle Duggar's at the top, a guy that we talked about. His running mate, Jeremy Chin, is another safety that's super athletic and could work out here. You have Troutman at the tight end position, not a guy that I'm super huge on, but Marcus Bailey's an interesting one too. But really, we have an opportunity here to really, I think, change the way the offensive line works. And Matt Hennessy is an underrated player, I think, that can come in and play safety and either shift Ryder out or shift him to guard and see what he can do there. And I think this is a guy that can play any of the 3 interior spots, but definitely at center. So we're going to take him and help Pat Mahomes out. We're going to see what that gets us here when we come around. Now, these are the compensatory picks here from, 34 on the way to 41 where we are. We just saw Kyle Duggar go off the board. So we're left here at the top of this list. Again, Jeremy Chin. I know a lot of you guys are going to be screaming for Albert O. I just don't want to invest in a tight end yet. So I'm going to hold off on that. Who else do we have here? Charles, I'm not huge on. Marcus Bailey. Damian Lewis is a guard that if we had not been able to get Hennessy, I probably would have looked at here late in the third, early in the fourth kind of range where I think is actually a good thing for him. There's Hunt again, another guy that could help along the offensive line, but that's not necessarily what we're looking for here. I see a couple of guys that can kind of be Swiss Army knives and help in a number of different ways. I don't see a lot of pass rush. Antonio Gibson, I know Dan's going to go for this pretty hard, but I'm going to hold off on him for now. I think he might be there when we come around to the next pick. And what I'm going to do is take another guy in the secondary that can help again, another guy that is definitely towards the Sorensen replacement type value in terms of player type. Small school, but we got a haul here in the third round by trading back again. Malik Harrison, Hennessy, and Chin all at the end of the third round. I like the way that this is going so far. So tell me what you think. Leave your choices, maybe what you think I did wrong underneath here in the comments section. We got a couple more picks, so we're just going to jump right in there and see what this will do for us. I like this back and forth with 2 boards. I hope you guys are enjoying it. This is going to be a long video, but hey, it's the way that it goes. And let's see. It's ticking along. Troy Dye did go off the board. Hunter Bryant is another tight end that went off the board. There's Damian Lewis, the guard that we were talking about. Just want to say, Akeem Adeniji is out there, and the Kansas Jayhawk just got picked, so rock chalk. Coming down to a couple of interesting guys that are lower down that I really like. We've kind of filled things in, and right now I'm not looking to move back anymore, so I am going to decline all of these offers, and we're going to take a look at what's on the board. And there's your guy, a running back. Oh, Cam Akers is still here too. That makes the difference here easily. I would be tempted, if we hadn't gotten Malik Harrison, to look at either Willie Gay, who's a great athlete but has some off-the-field issues, and Logan Wilson, who I think he's a really good player. I think he would have been gone by now. So Obviously, people are lower down on him than I am. And then there's a couple of other guys further down, but Cam Akers is too good to pass up here in the fourth. He is a running back that, if available here, is great value. I think he could come in and give a spark to what the Chiefs are trying to do on offense. I think that's great. We're going to tick through. This is going to end us for this round. We have one more pick, and we'll get through this, and we'll call it a week in terms of the mock drafting. And that's what we got. Cam Akers, the end of the fourth. That's great news. We're going to move on to the next round. This will be our last selection. I'm not going to trade back again, but I do want to tell you guys I'm going to do this every other week, and I will, I think, follow up and explain what the rigmarole is about how the Chiefs are going about right now with Chris Jones, Sammy Watkins, and how they're evaluating the draft. So we're going to start our last round after having produced quite a draft to this point. I'm really happy with the value that we've gotten by doing these movebacks into the thickest part of the 70 to 100 range, third round basically. And I like the way that it's moving for us. We're going to see a lot of guys go off the board here that might have been decent fifth round selections. And we're going to just see what is left for us when it's all said and done. Who is standing when it comes down? There are a number of guys here, and it looks like it is up to us. This is going to be our last selection. So we've taken a running back. We haven't addressed wide receiver at all, have we? So let's see who's left in that realm of the woods, because this is supposed to be a deep draft, right? And when I look around, I don't see anybody right off the top of my head that really says, hey, we have to go get them. And I think that's okay. Right now, Demarcus Robinson's able to come back. You can pick up some guys. Wide receivers are available all over the place, and I'm not too concerned about being able to find some if they need some. So let's take whoever is the best player in this group. And man, Tanner Muse is there again. We're not gonna double dip him in two different drafts. But as you look down this list, who stands out? Hudson is one that stands out as a very good athlete. Lavert Hill is an interesting guy. I think he's down here for a reason, though. Pirine, although we already took a running back, and I won't take two. But here's my guy. And if you want to play what Spags wants to play, a power edge kind of thing, Jason Strobich can go everywhere from maybe a one technique even, but definitely a three technique all the way out to the edge. I think he's another guy that can rotate in there, but more so with Okafor and Frank rather than what we saw with Colin Saunders and Chris Jones and them. So that's basically where it all comes down. So what have we done? We're going to let the sixth roll by. We're going to review what we have in order to take a look at what maybe we didn't get accomplished. But by moving down, we traded out of 32. We got the 10th pick in the second round from Jacksonville, something that I think is actually a possibility given what they've been doing through their offseason, and we'd use that to pick up A.J. Terrell. We came back 21 picks later and actually had Noah Igbenogany, I think a guy that could be pushing towards the top of the second round, really. He was here, so we grabbed him as well. Then we come back, and we traded back again. We got to 25, and that's where we got no picks. They decided to cut me off in the middle of it. We're going to actually go to the 7th and let it start. We traded back. We got Malik Harrison there. In that process, we got Hennessy to come in and bolster some of the interior offensive line and help Pat Mahomes stay vertical. And then we got lucky with Jeremy Chin. I don't know that he's actually going to be there at the bottom of the third, but he's a really unique athlete that needs some upside, needs to play, comes from a lower level of competition, but he could be very interesting. And then we came back, and we end up with Cam Akers. I don't expect that to happen. I think that was really low for where he's going to go, but a great back out of Florida State that can do what Andy Reid wants to do, and we got him in the 4th round. And then we finished up with an interesting upside kind of player in Jason Strobich who can stand up, he can rush from a down position, really versatile, and I really like what he did. So that's it for me. Let us know what you think. Leave your comments below. If you're not subbed, hit that button, hit the bell, get subbed that way so you know when new things come down. I'm going to be back tomorrow, and I'll do another video for you. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Make sure you check out the Locked On Chiefs podcast and give me any kind of questions that you have, video ideas. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit Monday nights. That's when we do the Q&A, and that's a lot of fun. We try to cover as many bases as we can. So thanks for your time today, and I'll check you next time.